I'm just trying to make sure we've wrapped up all the rats and mice still that are running around the room that still have to be decided before we can go home. We've got the ability to run some changes on funding through the model here to see what the impact on rates is. And coming back to where we were in the discussion before we went to afternoon tea was a discussion around the ability to to fund a part-time liaison position. And I'm actually going to ask Mr. Mohi to give us some guidance on this one and timing of it, which will give us a better idea then of funding we have available and funding we might have to seek. Right, you're in the hot seat.
So which part did you want guidance on? It was a question. Which part? The whole lot.
Well, should we at this stage?
Right.
The discussion has been around the ability to fund 75,000 on existing budgets on what has been identified for strategic alliances. So our question to you is to give us some guidance whether going to a liaison officer would be sensible or whether there is a preferred method of funding until such time as, say, the next triennium,
Okay.
which is next year.
Yeah, well, if I handle the first part first, the so-called Maori liaison person, given the geographic spread of Maori groups from Porongahau to Mahia, such a person would be looking at 12 hours a week sitting in the car just to get there. And you go to hui like we will be next Saturday at Bridge Par, 1 o'clock on a Saturday. Don't expect to get home before 6 o'clock. Similarly on Monday night at the Tai Whenua with Nikki, 5 o'clock start. Even though you could say, oh, the liaison officer wouldn't start work till then, there's all sorts of prep and I've been a liaison officer for 2 or 3 groups, including the Central College, which was supposed to be 18 hours. Well, you know, you're talking 40 hours. Parents want your ear and all this sort of thing. So I think, and I agree with Councillor Barker, you know, what do you employ a person at half, with the understanding it's going to be a half full-time equivalent, and then it later becomes a full-time, you know, where's the switchover? What I would think, what I would be suggesting, is that we left this until October of next year. I would say that I'm still doing quite a few of those so-called liaison jobs myself. I anticipate, and this is probably preempting quite wrongly, the review that we were going to have with Helen Coghlan. Now, the reason it hasn't taken place is that she went overseas for a couple of months, so it should have been underway. That review will review the whole way that Maori consultation and Maori representation is foreseen to happen going forward. So I've actually foresee that in October of next year, the Maori committee, if there's no amalgamation of course, will probably cease in its form. So there's a saving then, and the reason I say that is because the treaty groups will almost be all there by then. So there's going to be a new realm happening, and to say that we should to say that the Maori committee in its present form is going to be relevant after that time is probably stretching it a bit. In terms of the planning person, is that going to be an extra person in the planning division?
Yes.
It is. That won't be all that easy to fill, because mature Māoris actually have a huge pull in their own rohe. They don't like travelling. You know, they do their sort of so-called training, and then they go back to their own rohe because they're the expert not only in the planning, but for a whole host of things. and they go back to their own hapu and they become hugely overworked and they lose their hair. So it's going to be difficult to fill, but that planning person needs support from a full-time liaison type person. And, you know, I spend a lot of time with managers in this building, and I really like it, and I would hope that they get on well with me. But they've always got sort of so-called silly questions from a Maori point of view, but it's, you know, it's a bit of a block for them. Whether it's somebody in the pest control, you know, what do I say, who do I talk to? So I think it's covered well enough. We might be sort of over-emphasising that we need to do it quickly. And, you know, on our committee, Māori committee, like sometimes I say to Roger, look, you know, such and such, Roger Barker, such and such been brought up, can you talk to them? So we've got that network already. So does that help? Yeah. And just while I'm going on, Matatini, I would have liked to ask Des this morning. At the end of last year, we met at Nikki's office with about 8 or 9 potential funders, including one of the banks, internal affairs. There's a bit of a split over there between Ngā Marae, Des's group, which represents the Heratonga Marae, and also Nikki, who's the governing, so-called governing body over the fisheries. There's a little bit of a fight going on, and so you probably would have seen last week Tamahuata's daughter saying that, you know, I'm now taking Dad's place. Well, she's my niece. We're very closely related, not a distant niece. They really need to get together and have a talk with Nikki and sorting this out, because Nikki's got the resources and the experience. So, and I would be saying to somebody coming to us as a council, hey, we need to get around that same table and work out this matatini. Because at the moment, Fenton's had the new chair of matatini coming along and saying, look, you know, we need 10 million, and we're going to turn it into 100 for you. And he's going around to all the councils. Well, these chairmans and council mayors don't know what the hell's going on. So they really need to organise themselves. And as far as what Councillor Dick said about the tourism, there's a little bit of, from the Maori point of view, oh, we don't need you buggers, but really they all need to be together there, because the funding is actually about advertising the whole of Hawke's Bay, and I don't think they quite understand that. I'm talking about the Māori groups. I would be quite prepared to meet with that Anne after work. Sorry, and say, look, what sort of help do you need, and all the other groups, just to try and be the so-called person in between, and that's a job for that liaison officer too.
Madam Chair, some of the newer councillors may not realise the extent to which, over the last few years, Mike Mohi has, as well as being chair of Maori Committee, has effectively been our Maori liaison officer.
Absolutely.
And I mean, he's not paid for the amount of work that he does, but he does it extremely well, and we just wouldn't have got where we've got with the Joint Plan Committee and bringing all those people together without Mike. And if he's saying, well, I'm prepared to do it till October of next year, then I think it's a very, very generous offer, and may solve a problem, because then you can leave that money sitting there as a contingency for some Maori initiatives.
Well, I guess
appropriate.
That 75,000 doesn't take into account the Massey University liaison, and that presumably that strategic partnership is ongoing, isn't it? Yeah. So it's.
Do we get to discuss it?
Pardon?
Do we get to discuss it?
What?
The strategic partnership with Massey University?
There's been no submissions on it. It is up for renewal though in January of next year, so we will bring it back to probably your committee, councillor, for discussion prior to that.
So
Question?
at the moment, just to clarify, that 75,000 goes back onto the box if it's not used for the suggested liaison officer as strategic partnership funding. Is that,
Be carried forward, so
I know
when he
it's
starts,
the new
the
funding.
person can do it.
New funding.
Oh, it's new funding.
Yeah, yeah. Councillor Barker.
Thank you. A follow-up question to the previous question about Massey University. If it's going to expire in this financial year, and we are thinking either possibly of continuing it or discontinuing it, why can't we take Councillor Hewitt's suggestion and consider it now? Because if we make a decision we're not going to continue with it, it then can have an impact on our budget.
It would be very difficult just to perhaps provide you with the information right now, or we haven't done an assessment of that. But certainly, you know, there would be a number of options. It could be the possibility of, you know, looking at other university alliances if, for example, you decide not to continue with Massey University, or it could be continuing with Massey, or it could be discontinuing full stop. So we have prepared the long-term plan based on the assumption that there will be a strategic alliance with a university, based on that university being able to bring some research grunt into Hawke's Bay region.
So it's really outside the scope of this particular. It's identified that it will be, it's up for renewal within the next financial year, but not immediate. So it's committed going forward into the new year.
6 months.
So can we actually come back to the what we've got available here and what's being requested, because we've got to find a way through some fairly major items here. And I would really suggest that the $30,000 for water safety education is not part of the Maori relationships. It's actually a matter of funding a specific. It's neither Maori nor Pākehā. It just happens to be that they are involved with waka, but that's one that we really need to consider under request for funding as a separate. So
Talking about that list, under specific matters raised, that
Yes.
asks.
As far as I'm concerned, I can't support any of them, but I can support leaving a bit of money in that relationships fund as a contingency. But in terms of determining what we could or should support here today, I mean, this is just wish list money, and a lot of it, I'm not saying
one
it
of
is,
the-
it
yes,
can be
one of
just throwaway money.
one of the things I'll ask the staff to address is what is being done about marae upgrade facilities for Matatini, because Hastings District are committing some money to researching this, so we need to know what basis we're starting from.
So perhaps I can just explain through you, then, Madam Chair. Ngāti Kahungunu Iwi Incorporated are, if you like, hosting iwi for Matatini in 2017, and have the overall responsibility for the development of the festival itself. And so, as Mr. Mohi has indicated, a number of agencies have been meeting actually, reasonably regularly for quite a while. And Hastings District Council have employed a person to work on behalf of all the groups to assess the physical requirements, physical needs for upgrading of the marae. We are also working with that person as well. He's keeping us regularly informed, and we're facilitating where we can anything that needs to be done from our end. So at this stage we're very much in tune with what is happening and what needs to be done in terms of making the marae guest ready.
Just in terms of that, as the CEO said, there's a liaison officer going around to each marae and seeing what's required. And our response at some of these meetings is there's a lot of in-kind costs that we could pick up that wouldn't actually impact on the so-called rates. But it is important to get back around the table. They're overdue to get around the table and start saying, well, let's getting down to tin tax. But also the He Tōtaki Tini have indicated that they will be giving marae grants to upgrade not only for Takatini, but for general upgrading. So, when Des first came to Rex and I, he was coming from a different angle. So there's two groups there. They've actually got to sit down and become one group if this is going to be successful. Ngati Kahungunu has so-called got the mantle, and then a side group is coming and say, okay, now we're handling it. It's not going to work like that.
Chair, I also told Toro Waka yesterday from my experience with Lottery Grants Board that any marae that makes a request for upgrade will automatically get a $5,000 grant off lotteries.
Automatically.
There was never any debate about that. Was our policy.
Has
They
been
come in
fast.
looking to upgrade a kitchen or bedding, ask for money, give them $5,000.
Right, well, we need to move to some decision making on this. I wonder
Sorry,
whether we
there's-
can
there's
use,
just one element in addition to
Yep.
the discussions we've had, and that is, if I look at the second point, the direct relationship between HBRC and Waimarama Marae, and I think we got interpreting what was said, I think we got a similar request from Des Rudama when he came in. And I think, so how do we deal with that? And I think that what they want the relationship with us as the elected councillors, and I think that we need to try and institute some sort of a program of visits so that we can get round all the marae and actually meet them on the marae, face to face, hear their issues, and get a direct relationship with them, because that seems to me what they're asking for. It's not going to cost money, but it's going to take some time, and we need to implement some sort of a program to do that, in my view.
it may be able to be funded out of the strategic alliances, because another request which isn't mentioned on here was the to Huia Hapu, and they can't be run for nothing. So putting money back into that 75,000 could go quite quickly.
Yes, but Councillor Bevan is correct. They have a Māori committee meeting out there once every 6 weeks. If we could ask, the 3 or 4 of us could go there and sit there and saying, okay, listen to them. So what are your so-called requests? And we will be taking this back to our works program as an example, because there's 90 odd marae in Kahungunu, and they all want a piece of the action. So, for everybody to go, you're going to be really earning your money. But that's the type. I went out there with the mayor of Hastings, and just after the floods, and they really appreciated the one-to-one stuff. So it's a great idea to have a small group go out there and talk to them when they're having their committee meeting, because they invite the rest of the community at the same time.
But don't forget the likes of Waihik Marae, who don't come in here asking for money. They come in here and tell us what they've done themselves and been highly successful.
Is it the wish of this of the council to work through this list and consider it, or do we take it as a whole? And can you give me some guidance as to how you'd like to handle it? Because there are a lot of complex issues in here, and Menton's here to be able to let you have the magic rate figure at the end of it. Councillor Graham.
I have a suggestion. Taking on what Mr. Mohi said, I wouldn't frame it the way he framed it. I would frame it the way that, in terms of that a request for a staff member, that we think, given the impending vote that is going to happen in our region, that we should just hold off on any of these expenditure items. But there's so we take that as just read. But some of these things that we don't have to spend money on, like a direct relationship, they've specifically asked. It's easy for us to do that. It's easy for 3 or 4 of us to go out to their meeting and start creating that dialogue within this next 12 months. I'd really like us to do something about water.
Well, can we just run down the list and see which ones you're
Raupanga.
happy to tick off?
Maybe by consensus we can come up with
Yeah.
a resolution with a series of
Yeah.
lines in it,
Yeah.
or action points.
So the Māori Technical Advisory Committee, which the Regional Planning Committee now has the support of the range of technical advisors of council, just as everyone does, plus there will be that extra position which is funded in the plan of a senior planning position. Qualifications for that may have to vary according to what's available. But on top of the technical advisors that are there to help resource that committee, there will be that extra, that's already included in the funding for this plan.
So tick that then.
Tick that one?
So
Aye.
what do you line up in a resolution that says we confirm?
Can you just straw poll it, otherwise we'll...
I'm just trying to get a feeling for you. If anyone's raising objections saying, no, I'm wanting more, now's your time to let me know. All right? So we're happy with that one. We can tick. You're not
It
supporting
doesn't cost
the
us anything,
existing.
Alan.
You're
Doesn't
not supporting the existing position of the technical advisors that are already there, plus the new planning position already in the proposed plan.
Existing technical advisors.
Well, science advisors, all of our advisors,
Yeah.
our planning, all our planning staff, existing staff,
All right, that's okay.
plus one new position, councillor.
Yes,
Yep, okay. So we tick that one off. Right, the requests, and we'll lump those together, unless anyone's particularly got one they want to pick out, of the Taipuna o Heratonga's request for various supports for their ongoing research and developing their programs. There is no available funding. No one's supporting new funding.
Not supporting that. But can we put it in the way that there is no funding available for that, and we don't want to preempt anything while there's a moment of decisions going on in Hawke's Bay? So put
Yeah.
some wording around that.
Yeah. So a lot of this will word around that
Yeah.
while there's uncertainty about the future
Yeah.
structure of council.
Yeah, we don't want to go out to our rate.
Yeah.
Our rate part.
So you lost me, you're working down this list
Yep.
line by line.
Yeah,
No,
but not
just
numbered,
taken-
unfortunately.
Just taken 3 lines.
Even 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines you've taken.
Right, yep, 5 lines. The Regional Maori Tourism Coordinator, can we tick
Can,
that to
can
cut?
we take up Councillor Dick's suggestion
I don't know
that
where you're at.
we're at Regional Maori Tourism Coordinator? And can we take up your suggestion?
What about, if you're going from the top, what about this direct relationship between HBRC and Waimarama?
Oh, sorry, I started for the on the funding.
So it was the funding for
yeah,
this, so the
sorry.
fourth bullet point down, and then the funding requests is what's been dealt with, so.
Yeah.
So the director relationship is
We can do
handled internally. We've
Yeah.
made a decision that will be worked on.
Thank you.
All right. The support for the senior management role for Maori liaison is being kept to
I must
touch
see
for
every second word. Yeah.
until
I
a
have to
new
say I'm
council.
officially here.
Yeah.
That Regional
But
Tourism Coordinator.
the Maori Technical Advisory Group is our existing technical advisory group plus the
we
new
go,
position
sure.
of a senior planner.
Tick.
All right, and now we've just, the request for funding from Te Tawhenua Heratonga, all as 1, 2, 3, 4,
5.
5, is it?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 requests for money, deferred, and for until there's the council, shape of council in Hawke's Bay has been,
Yeah.
yeah.
Could we not say that the 250 could come out of the 30 million that's already in the plan for developing the,
No.
why?
There's no set amount of that put aside for any particular, and I think it would be premature until a pre-feasibility has been determined as to what is available in it, as to decide how that is. I'm sure that will be negotiated at the time. Could I actually look for some guidance from the Chairman of Council on that one?
On the 250,000, no, I agree.
No, paid Chairman of the Council.
Great.
I'm chairing this meeting.
Just the $250,000, the suggestion from Councillor
Yep.
Belford, well, it may never happen.
Right. Thank you. The Regional Māori Tourism Coordinator, I suggest that we leave that one till we can discuss
Well,
tourism.
could we make a suggestion though that Councillor Dixie, could we suggest
Yep,
to them
can we
that
pick
a
it up under
director?
the tourism
Okay.
discussion? So, I think there are several initiatives around these requests that can be addressed through that. Right, the restoration of pūteri, some specific initiatives in Ahuriri, and that might include Mr. Curtin's request for funding in Ahuriri. Yes.
The Pūteri Lakes are inland from Raupunga, about 25 k's, three freshwater lakes which they got back as part, Pahuera got back as part of their treaty claims, and there's a bit of a lodge there which Fenton goes to apparently in the occasional weekend. Now I've asked Pahuera if they will make an application to our fund, my fund rather, and we would be prepared to, and asking them, if they would be prepared to pay 50% of the fencing, with the scenario that they will get 50% of the funding from elsewhere. There's no guarantee on that. I've just asked him to make the application, and asked him 3 times that if he could have it in by this week. Still no closer.
Unfortunately, Mr. Adie's here not to ask, is there still funding available through the land management for fencing?
The 120,000 was carried forward. My understanding is that that's the money they would have unspent at the end of the year. That's their estimate.
Yeah, so they should be advised also to make application through the standard. Yeah. Specific initiatives in Ahuriri. So we've got a feeling that as far as pūteri goes, that there are funding mechanisms they can apply to. You happy with that? No further funding? Specific initiatives in Ahuriri?
This is specifically with respect to Maori. So there is $500,000 in the Mana Ahuriri
Yes, there is.
to
Yep.
deal specifically with
Yep.
this set of issues. So is that not adequate?
We've got an agreement of memorandum of understanding, have we not? And I think there is still a development plan to come out of that. So there's nothing specific yet. The marae upgrade facilities we've covered. Potable water supply at Warapunga.
I would.
There's a healthy housing initiative which I think it was agreed that There's a healthy housing initiative that we discussed earlier, and I think it was agreed that the provision of water would be part of that, if I recall.
And the provision of drinking water domestic drinking water is a district council TA responsibility. So we need to just let them know that as well. I think they know that already. I sense that from Toru. He talked about having talked to Wairoa District. I think he was looking just for another possible funding avenue for it.
Madam Chair, just in Raupunga, being the rural fire manager there for a couple of years, the water issue is well known, been known for the last 20 years. The district council have sort of fluffed around the edges of it, but I see they've just sunk some capital into redoing the toilets there on the side of the road, and I haven't seen it, I haven't read their long-term plan, but they are being quite proactive around water in some of these smaller settlements. But as an example, if there was a fire, it took 3 days to fill a reservoir up that used to fill a steam train, I think, back in the days. And then if you had a fire, you got 1 tank out of it, and then, you know, if you needed 2, you were stuffed because you had to wait 3 days for it to fill up again before you could get the next tank out of it. So they certainly have some issues there.
But again, there are 2 avenues that we can point them in the direction
Well,
of.
I think what I'm suggesting is they're already well down that
Possibly
path.
there. Okay, thanks. So that gets through that list, except for a specific fund, which is not really part of the relationship with Māori. It was a request by a trust for running water safety education for all people, for all young people. Well, there was no question that it was related only to Māori. So what, can someone advise us what bucket that comes out of? And I
Well-
guess if it's not a
Well,
bucket, it's an effect on rates.
Yeah, so my apologies, councillors, that this obviously escaped the net in terms of picking it up for my brief. That would sit in our navigation, safety and harbour management budget. And I've just quickly got the team to give me a summary that we actually already spend about $18,000 a year on water safety programs through the Coast Guard, and we've kicked off a school-based education program that our harbour master is running and goes and visits schools around the water safety message. That's partly funded through a grant from Maritime New Zealand, and just the note here is that it's been so successful that they're looking to substantially increase it. And I have just recently spoken to Henry Van Chul, who's the local Coast Guard president, about bringing Coast Guard into the fold in that education program. So it's just unfortunate that we hadn't spoken to that group prior to their submission, because actually we're already active in that space and doing stuff, and we want to grow that. So if we were going to take up the $30,000 proposition from them, we would have to discontinue the school-based program to partially fund it. The rest would have to come, I'm not sure where, it would have to come somewhere that Paul would find. My recommendation would be that given the broad coverage the school-based program has, is that we would like to continue with that, and that we probably need to go back to the Voyaging Trust and talk about how we can integrate them into the program.
Yep. No, that's fine.
And also the Tai Tumu Trust are involved with water safety. Ngāwhina Rahui funded them for $10,000 for a 2-day program last year through the Norm Hewitt's brother. What's his name? Rob. Yeah, he conducted that, and they'll be doing it on an annual basis, and they're looking for us for funding them annually as well.
If we can come back then to the matters raised under this one, if we can take them, just separate that one out, the bottom one, and take all the other ones. From what we've come down to, it is actually out of existing budgets with the provision that's in the proposed budget for the new position. So it seems to me the recommendation is around no change to the plan, and all those comments about where people can go for solutions will be built into that. So is anyone, can I get anyone prepared to move?
Just a question, couldn't the last one remain in there?
Well, I think it's not really a relationship with Māori, it's really like...
But then we've dealt with that
yep,
issue.
And we will deal with that one as just an issue of...
Okay.
Separately. Is anyone prepared to move? Thank you, Councillor Dick.
I'd like to second it, but I haven't heard the...
Okay, I'll second it then.
Haven't heard.
All right, and the wording around that will be obviously no change to the plan, but identifying those and especially that big block, referring it to the reorganisation, until the new structure of council is known, or whatever the ongoing structure is. So, Councillor Dick, do you wish to speak to that? Okay, anyone wish to speak to it? Right, then I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And can we just come down to the Rocker Trust? And again, I think the motion is no change in the plan, but we will, thank you. Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Bevan. We will refer them to the existing programs and to the funding sources that have been suggested for external funding. So,
Sorry, does that incorporate the notion of liaising with them?
yes, yep. The staff have taken that on board, haven't they? Yep. So that they can be integrated into existing programs, yes. So the motion is there, no change to the plan. All those in favour, unless anyone wants to speak to it? Aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So there is another issue, yes. Okay, yes I will. Yep, because of declared conflict. Yep. Thank you, Councillor Graham. There was one other that we haven't covered there, and that was Jenny Major's request, and I'm not sure exactly what it was for, but it was to be considered in starting some plan provisions around Uncle. Again, I think around that one, I'm really not sure. She had nothing in mind except to develop some plans, but it seemed to be around coastal issues, and my suggestion is that that be integrated into when we review the coastal plan. Mm. So on that particular issue, I'm quite happy to move that planning request, there's no change. Right. All those in favour say aye. But again, it will be picked up in response to him. Right, we're going